The Nordstrom credit card reader declined for the third time. My mother stared at it like the machine had personally insulted her, then turned to me with that expectant smile I'd learned to dread. "Sarah, be a dear and put this on your card," she said, gesturing at the shopping cart overflowing with designer clothes, shoes, and accessories. "We'll pay you back after the holidays." I stood next to my sister Victoria, who was trying on a $900 pair of boots while our aunts and cousins piled more items onto the counter. The Nordstrom employee looked exhausted. We'd been here for 3 hours and the total was approaching $8,000. "Mom, that's a lot of money," I said quietly. "Oh, don't be dramatic," Aunt Carol laughed, adding a cashmere sweater to the pile. "You're always so careful with money. Live a little. The poor sister can pay," Mom announced to the growing crowd of relatives, and they all laughed like it was the funniest joke they'd ever heard. Poor sister. That's what they called me. Not because I was actually poor, but because I drove a 7-year-old Toyota, lived in a tiny 2-bedroom apartment and wore clothes from Target. Victoria, meanwhile, lived in a sprawling 4-bedroom house in the suburbs with her husband Chad. She drove a Range Rover. She took tropical vacations 4 times a year. She had never worked a full day in her life. And every bit of her lifestyle was funded by our parents, who still believed I was struggling along on some entry-level salary, barely making ends meet. "Sarah." The cashier looked at me hopefully. Behind me, the line of holiday shoppers was getting restless. I pulled out my credit card, not the regular one I carried but the black Amex I kept in a separate pocket. The one connected to my actual accounts. "Actually," I said, "I need to make a phone call first. About my credit limit." I stepped away and dialed. "Not my credit card company. My real estate attorney. Jennifer, it's Sarah Patterson. Execute the plan. Today." "Are you sure?" Jennifer asked. "Once we start." "I'm sure. They just maxed out 3 credit cards buying Christmas presents while calling me the poor sister." "I'm done." "Understood. I'll have the documentation ready within the hour. The property notices will go out tomorrow." I hung up and returned to the register. "Sorry for the delay. You can run it now." The card went through instantly. It had a $50,000 limit. The cashier looked relieved. My family looked smug. "See?" Mom said, patting my arm. "That wasn't so hard. Family helps family, right?" "Right," I said, watching them load 13 shopping bags into their arms. "Family helps family." Victoria linked her arm through mine as we walked through the mall. "Thanks, sis. I know you don't have a lot, but this means so much. Chad's been on my case about spending, so having you cover this really helps." "Of course," I said. "Anything for family." What Victoria didn't know, what none of them knew, was that while she'd been living in her luxury house for the past 5 years, I'd been the one paying for it. Not directly. That would have been too obvious. Instead, when our parents' real estate investments had collapsed in 2019, and they'd faced foreclosure on their rental properties, I'd quietly purchased all 7 properties through an LLC, including the house Victoria lived in, and the house our parents lived in, and the investment condo Aunt Carol rented. They thought a generous investor had bought the portfolio and was giving them incredibly favorable lease terms. The generous investor was me. I was 31 years old. I'd started my career as a software engineer at Microsoft when I was 22. By 25, I'd been recruited to a startup that went public. My stock options alone were worth $2.4 million. By 28, I'd transitioned to real estate investment, using my tech salary to build a portfolio of rental properties. Current net worth, $11.3 million. My family thought I made maybe $50,000 a year. They thought this because I'd carefully maintained that impression for 9 years, ever since I realized that every time they knew I had money it disappeared. Birthday money as a teenager. Borrowed for Victoria's cheerleading expenses. My first big bonus at 23. Loaned to Dad for a business opportunity that never materialized. My tax refund at 25. Needed for Mom's emergency dental work that turned out to be cosmetic veneers. So I'd learned to hide it. Lived below my means. Drove an old car. Dressed simply. And built an empire they knew nothing about. Until today. The next morning my phone started ringing at 6:47 a.m. It was Mom. Sarah, something terrible has happened. Our landlord is selling the house." I put her on speaker and made coffee. "What? The house you've lived in for 5 years. Yes. We just got a notice that the property is being sold and we have 60 days to vacate. 60 days. Right after Christmas. That's awful, Mom. What are you going to do? I don't know. Victoria got the same notice. And Carol, her condo too. All on the same day. The landlord is selling everything. Wow, I said, pouring cream into my coffee. That seems coordinated. It's a disaster. We can't find anywhere to go on such short notice. Not in our price range. Do you know how much rent is now? I did know. I'd researched it extensively. Market rate for their house was $4,200 per month. They'd been paying $1,800. Less than half. I'm sure something will work out, I said. We need to see the owner negotiate something. The notice says to contact the property management company. Can you help us? You're so good with these official things. Sure, Mom. Forward me the notice. The email arrived minutes later. I pretended to read it even though I'd written it myself. Or rather, Jennifer had written it on my behalf. It says you need to schedule a meeting with the owner, I told her. There's a phone number. Want me to call? Please. You're so much better at this than I am. I called the property management company. My property management company. Patterson Property Holdings. This is Robert. Hi Robert, it's Sarah. My family just got their notices. They want to meet with the owner. Perfect. Should I schedule them for the conference room downtown? Yes. Tomorrow at 10 a.m. All of them. My parents, my sister and her husband, Aunt Carol. Tell them it's mandatory if they want to discuss lease renewal options. Will do. This should be interesting. That's one word for it. The conference room at Patterson Property Holdings had floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. My family arrived in a cluster, dressed in their shopping trip finery, ready to charm whoever owned their homes. Victoria was wearing one of the outfits I'd bought 2 days ago, a $600 designer dress. They were led into the conference room by Robert, who gestured to the chairs around the long table. The owner will be with you shortly. Please have a seat. Through the glass wall I watched them settle in. Mom was nervous, fidgeting with her purse. Dad was trying to look confident. Victoria was texting, probably complaining to Chad about the inconvenience. I gave them 5 minutes to get uncomfortable, then walked in carrying a leather portfolio. The room went silent. Sarah. Mom stood up. What are you doing here? I work here, I said simply, taking the seat at the head of the table. You work for the property management company? Dad asked. Since when? I don't work for the property management company, I said, opening my portfolio. I own it. And I own the 7 properties in your notice, including all 3 of your homes. Victoria's laugh was shrill. That's not funny, Sarah. It's not a joke. I slid documents across the table. These are the property deeds. I purchased them in 2019 when you were all facing foreclosure. I've been your landlord for 5 years. Dad grabbed the papers, his face reddening as he scanned them. This is impossible. You don't have this kind of money. These properties are worth $4.7 million total, yes. I paid $3.1 million for the portfolio when you were desperate to sell. Below market value, but you needed cash fast. Mom was shaking her head. No, we sold to an investment company. Cascade Holdings LLC. That's me. I'm Cascade Holdings. Aunt Carol looked like she might faint. You've been our landlord? For 5 years. Why didn't you tell us? Because the last time you knew I had money you took it. All of it. Every time. That's not fair, Victoria said. We're family. Family shares. You're right, I said. Let me tell you about sharing. Over the past 10 years you've borrowed $340,000 from me. Victoria, you got $180,000. The down payment for your wedding, the car, the furniture, the trips. Mom and Dad, you got $95,000 for Dad's business ventures. Aunt Carol, $35,000 for your daughter's college tuition. Uncle Mike, I nodded to him in the corner, $30,000 for home repairs. You kept track. Mom whispered. Of money you gave to family? Money you took while calling me poor. While laughing at my car, my apartment, my clothes. While making me feel guilty for not giving more. Robert entered with another stack of folders. Ms. Patterson, the additional documentation you requested. Thank you, Robert. I opened the folders. These are the market rate comparisons for your properties. Mom and Dad, you've been paying $1,800 monthly for a house that rents for $4,200. Victoria, you've paid $1,600 for a house worth $3,800. Carol, $1,100 for a condo worth $2,400. You've been subsidizing us, Dad said slowly. I've been subsidizing you while you called me poor. While you expected me to pay for shopping sprees and dinners and gifts. While Victoria posted on Instagram about her self-made lifestyle. Victoria's face went white. I didn't know. You didn't want to know. None of you did. You wanted to believe I was struggling so you could feel superior while taking my money. Chad, Victoria's husband, spoke for the first time. So what happens now? You're kicking us out. I'm giving you options, I said. Option 1. You pay market rate. Full market rate. First month, last month, and deposit due within 30 days. Mom gasped. That's over $12,000 for us. Option 2. You vacate within 60 days as stated in the notice, and I'll waive any penalties for breaking your lease. Where are we supposed to go? Victoria asked. We can't afford market rate anywhere. Then I suggest option 3. I pulled out another document. You purchased the properties from me. I'm willing to sell at current market value. Based on recent appraisals, that's $1.3 million for your house, Mom and Dad. Victoria, yours is $870,000. Carol, your condo is $385,000. The silence was deafening. We don't have that kind of money, Dad finally said. Then you'll need to downsize. There are apartments available across town. One bedrooms start around $1,400 a month. One bedroom. Mom looked horrified. We have a 3-car garage. You have a 3-car garage that I've been subsidizing for 5 years while you maxed out my credit cards buying Christmas presents. Jennifer, my attorney, entered with perfect timing. Excuse me, Miss Patterson. The buyers for the Victoria Street property want to schedule a walkthrough. Should I confirm for next week? Wait, Victoria said. Buyers? You already have buyers. Of course. These are prime properties in excellent condition. I've had offers on all of them. But where will we go? Mom was crying now. That's not really my concern anymore. I stood up, collecting my portfolio. You have 60 days to decide. Option 1, 2, or 3. The property management company will coordinate with whatever you choose. Sarah, please. Dad's voice was smaller than I'd ever heard it. We made mistakes. We took advantage. But we're family. You can't just throw us out. I'm not throwing you out. I'm treating you the way you've treated me, as a financial transaction. You wanted to use me as a bank? Fine. Banks charge interest. Banks have terms. Banks foreclose when you don't pay. This is cruel, Aunt Carol said. Doing this at Christmas. You maxed out my credit cards 2 days ago at Christmas and called me the poor sister, while doing it. I learned cruelty from the best. I walked to the door, then paused. Oh, and about those credit cards? They're business cards tied to my LLC. The charges show up as cash advances since you weren't buying business expenses. The interest rate is 24.99%. Your first payment of $847 is due January 15th. $800? Victoria's voice cracked. For one payment? That's just the minimum. The full balance is $8,340 with interest. You have excellent credit though. I'm sure you'll figure it out. We don't have excellent credit, Dad admitted. We maxed everything out years ago. That's why we needed you to. He stopped. To pay. I finished. Yes, I know. I've always known. Mom stood up, her hands clasped like she was praying. Sarah, honey, please. There has to be something we can do. Some compromise. We're your family. You're right. You're my family. That's why I'm giving you options instead of just evicting you. That's why I subsidized your rent for 5 years. That's why I paid for your shopping spree even though you humiliated me doing it. Then why are you doing this now? She asked. Because I'm done. Done being poor Sarah. Done being the backup plan. Done funding your lifestyle while you mock mine. Robert appeared at my elbow. Miss Patterson, your 11 o'clock is here. Thank you. I looked at my family one last time. You have 60 days. Choose wisely. 6 weeks later, I sat in my actual apartment. Not the small 2-bedroom I'd been pretending was my only residence, but my real home. A penthouse condo worth $2.1 million with panoramic city views. My phone showed a text from Robert. All 3 families chose option 2. Victoria's house closes next week. Your parents found a 2-bedroom apartment in Kent. Carol moved in with her daughter. Another text. Total properties sold, $4.8 million. Net profit after original purchase and improvements, $1.7 million. Congratulations. I felt nothing. No triumph, no guilt, no satisfaction. Just quiet. My laptop pinged with a video call. Jennifer. Sarah, your parents' attorney is asking if there's any possibility of you reconsidering. They're offering to pay back the credit card debt over time. How long? They're proposing $200 per month. I did the math. That's 42 months for the principal alone, not counting interest. Tell them no. Sarah, I have to ask, and you can fire me for this, but is this really what you want? You're financially destroying your family. My family financially destroyed me first, I said. They just didn't notice because I rebuilt myself in secret. Now they get to know what that feels like. Fair enough. One more thing, Victoria's husband called me directly. He says Victoria is pregnant and they need the house. I closed my eyes. Took a breath. Tell him congratulations. My gift is letting them out of the lease penalty-free. That saves them $8,000. They can use it for baby furniture. That's very generous. No, I said. It's proportional. I'm not a monster. I'm just not a doormat anymore. We hung up. I stood at my floor-to-ceiling windows looking out at the city lights. My phone buzzed. A text from Mom. Please call. We need to talk. I deleted it. Another text from Victoria. I'm pregnant. Doesn't that matter to you? I turned off my phone. Some people would call me heartless. A bad daughter and worse sister. They're welcome to their opinions. But those people didn't spend a decade being called poor Sarah while funding everyone else's dreams. They didn't get laughed at in Nordstrom while paying for designer clothes they'd never wear themselves. They didn't spend years being invisible except when someone needed money. I wasn't heartless. I was free. And sometimes freedom looks like selling your family's houses out from under them. Sometimes mercy looks like giving them 60 days instead of 30. Sometimes love looks like letting them figure it out on their own. The next morning, I donated $100,000 to a financial literacy nonprofit. I wanted someone to learn what I'd learned, that family isn't supposed to bleed you dry. That generosity without boundaries isn't love. That the person funding everyone else's life deserves to have one too. My family called me cruel for giving them 60 days notice. I'd given them 10 years of chances. Those 60 days were more kindness than they'd ever shown me.